When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Pablo, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for driving up from San Diego to have this party with me and chat security.
Love the opportunity.
So tell me, how things going down there in Mexico? Are you guys just going crazy with the demand, with everything going on?
Well, it is pretty bad. What's happening right now, it's with COVID and all that,
right?
You can actually see the numbers of crime declining a little bit, especially crimes against the civilian population. But the problem with that, and what's creating right now for us and for our industry is, these guys are starving. These guys are not making their living. And you have to understand this is a business for them, and they have to feed their families and all that. So with people not, being out, there's not a lot of traveling. There's not a lot of clients for them in the streets. So yeah, you can see that the crime rate's going down,
right?
But that's only an indication that they're going to shoot up.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because eventually, a lot of people are losing their jobs. They're talking about 25% of the country might be unemployed right now. And who's hiring?
Right, exactly.
The bad guys always are.
Mm-hmm. So what's the your biggest business right now is instructing driving. That's your biggest business component. And you're like embedded in with I know Allied just took over AS Solutions, and you've been working with Aaron and doing tons of training. We've seen you all over LinkedIn. You're like the LinkedIn celebrity in EP now.
Well, I honestly owe that to Aaron.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Devil dog Marine. What can I say?
He's a great guy. He's helped us a lot, actually. And he has a lot of followers.
He does.
People love him. So yeah, our background comes in security. I started out 20 years ago doing kidnap and ransom negotiations.
Holy crap.
As part of a group that did that. It was not only me, it was like 15 different people doing this.
Wow.
And in the lapse of 4 years since I started, I was a little kid back then. And
right.
Since I started to the moment I said, that's enough, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
We were part of 334 negotiations, precisely. After that, I oversaw a couple of them. But then, in 2004, when I looked back and said, well, I've spent 4 years of my life stuck in homes of people I don't know, helping them with their situations. And it was all reactive. We were not doing anything for them to prevent this in the future. A lot of people say, well, lightning doesn't strike twice. So, and they got it again. It happened again. Mm-hmm. So I decided I wanted to go into the security industry, more in the prevention part than in the reactive part. And plus, it takes a strain on you to be stuck in there with the families, and they're going through a very difficult time.
Sure, a lot of stressors.
Well, it's the worst possible crime that you can have in a family, a kidnapping, because your family member gets murdered every day in your mind. Every day. So when somebody gets killed, you mm-hmm. deal with that situation once. When somebody is being kidnapped and you're receiving these calls from the bad guys all the time saying, well, I'm going to kill him if you don't do this, or if you don't get me enough money, right. we're going to kill him. And then sometimes they tell you, well, you didn't meet my expectations, so now you're responsible. You killed him, and they hang up the phone and they stop calling for 5 days.
Holy cow! My heart would be pounding.
And and what you see, and this is something I talked to Byron Rogers
sure.
once. What you see in the movies, and I'm sorry to break everybody's hearts, but what you see in the movies is not true. The negotiators are not there to talk to the kidnappers. Negotiators are kind of like an attorney, like a lawyer. You sit there, you advise the family, you tell them what to do, you do your war room, you do your blackboards on the wall, you create the ideas that you want the family member, usually the father, to talk to the bad guys and portray. And seeing all this situation, all this stress, it really takes its toll after a while.
Can't imagine, because you don't know the unknown of what's going to happen to your child. And the cartel, I'm assuming, are the ones holding the kid hostage, or it can be any entity or organization?
Well, it's changed. It's
sure.
been, when it started, when we did that.
Yeah. Don't you love those things?
When we started doing this thing,
yeah,
there was very specialized bands, like gangs that did this for a living.
Right.
2008, our president declares a war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides that since all previous efforts have been failed, he decides to, take the army in Mexico, the armed forces, and get them in the streets to fight against the cartels. And I used to work at a radio show back then. And the host of that radio show, one of the top radio shows in Mexico, asked me what to think about that. I said, well, we'll still have to see what happens. But if you ask me, these cartels, their job prior to that was they buy their coke or whatever they want to sell. They buy it in South America. They get it through Mexico and into the U.S., which was the major consumer, is the major consumer for that type of merchandise. But if you get the army out to fight against them, you're increasing their cost of operations, and they're not going to take it lying down. They're going to have to diversify into different areas so they can make the added amount of money that they're going to have to spend in taking care of their operations. And that is very dangerous because they're very efficient. They have huge operations, and they have almost unlimited resources. And he said, well, we'll pray to God that doesn't happen. And
right,
what do you think? It did.
Exactly.
And so what started to happen in Mexico is that the cartels started creating this. They existed it before, but they weren't as we didn't see them as much. And they started creating these groups like the Zetas and other groups that did their dirty work for them. They were kind of like their executive protection, and they did their security for them, and they took care of the cargo, and they fought the government, or they fought the army for them. And they started letting these cells or these organizations to do their own work to fund themselves. Like they allowed them to go into kidnapping, which is a major source of income for them at that time. And then the smaller bands were easy to control, and the negotiations were pretty straightforward. They started to disappear. And then the cartels got into this business, and they started getting people in one state and transferring them to another state. I talked to a victim that said that he was in a box and he got on a plane.
Wow. What kind of plane?
Who knows? Who knows, right? And where did it took off and where did it land? Unknown. Mm-hmm. But the cartels have that capacity. The other ones did not. So now it's starting to get a lot more dangerous. And then it evolved into these little cells that were doing the security for the cartels or the dirty work for the cartels. They became cartels themselves, and they started fighting their old bosses. And then crime started to rise. And then a lot of people tell you, well, in Mexico, you can't take that into account because that's the bad guys killing bad guys. Well, no, because all of those guys killed didn't start out being bad guys.
Interesting.
They were recruited.
Oh,
right? They had to, because if you're losing so many people, if you have 60,000 people dying from the ranks every year, you have to replenish that, and you have to replace those people that were going to kill. So what they're doing is they're going into the smaller towns where the poverty line is very high. They were recruiting smaller kids, giving them a gun and some money, and suddenly they're the king of the town. And you see all this. They make this music or these songs called corridos.
Okay,
right, and they're a lot of fun and they're very interesting. But they kind of like they glorify the fact that the drug lord is the
warrior,
exactly, the
warrior spirit,
the big man, and he has respect, which you don't have otherwise. And they're going to give you a gun. They're going to give you $1,000 a month, which makes you probably the highest earner in the town. And suddenly, all of a sudden, you're 17 years old and you have a lot of power because that gun gives you a lot of power. And the background, and then the cartel that is backing you gives you a lot of power. And then they get killed, and then they get another one and another one and another one. So all those guys are getting recruited from the populations, and you got to feed them. And where they're getting the money, it's not coming from the drugs or the main course of business. They're coming from kidnapping. It's coming from human trafficking, prostitution rings, huge prostitution rings.
Let me ask you, with that said, human trafficking is a big deal now. Everybody has awareness. I'm hearing there's more money in business in human trafficking than there is now in the drugs. Is that true, or is that misconception?
I don't know.
Okay.
Mexico's been cataloged. It's been, it's one of the major or the largest sex tourism destinations in the world after Thailand. And there's a lot of underage child exploitation and things like that. But I don't think but I've heard both sides.
Sure.
But you're talking a multi-billion-dollar industry in the drugs, and it'd be hard for me to imagine that they could be making so much money in the
human trafficking side.
Human trafficking.
Right.
But I mean, you never know those things.
Yeah. Now, from your standpoint, your biggest threat operating in there is the cartel when you're protecting your clients coming and going from point A to point B. That's what people assume. What's the real story?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And the answer is no.
Got it.
Cartels don't really mess around a lot with the people, with the executives or businessmen in Mexico. They do with you have the biggest risk that somebody can that we deal with is kidnapping. That's kind of like the worst crime that could be committed against an executive. And because you got assassinations and things like that, attacks, hits, but that's usually directed to somebody that did something that when he got into some trouble for some reason and things like that. That doesn't happen very much.
Right.
But kidnappings do, and kidnappings are tough. And so for the cartels, it's a lot easier to go and kidnap people that don't have any security. And what they do is, since they have all this huge machine working for them, they don't really need to have one guy kidnapped that's going to pay $1 million. They can have 1,000 guys that are going to pay $1,000. And that makes it a better business for them, lower risk, and they're not taking care of themselves. What we did back in, it all started in 96 when executive protection started to get real big in Mexico. After 2008, when the cartels started coming out, a lot of people started investing a lot in armored vehicles and executive protection details. So what the cartels did is they moved down market, and they started going out for anyone that would pay around $1,000. And you do massive kidnappings of this type. And then you have the mid-range kidnappings, which were about $100,000 over 21 days, which was also big. Those with executive protection in Mexico, they since 2008, between 96 and 2008, they kind of like inoculated the market. And those are not very big anymore.
Interesting.
We used to have 2,500 of those a year.
Right.
Now, if you hear about 10, 20, it's a lot. As I said, because this industry went down market, they went for the easier race. And then you have the really high impact kidnappings, which they're going to go for the guy who cannot hide their fortune. They will ask for millions of dollars. They will get millions of dollars. They will keep that guy, locked up for a long time. We have had some of these that go over for years sometimes.
Right.
Those are still happening, but those are usually carried out by the militias or the subversive groups that exist in Mexico, like the EPR and all those.
Right. And
they've evolved. They've always been there. So they do one or two of those probably a year. They fund enough. They get enough funds for their militia to work for a couple of for a couple of months, and then they go to something else.
Wow. Well, folks, that is the first episode with Pablo here. He's with AS3. He's a driving instructor for that organization. And we're going to wrap this up for a few minutes, and we're going to do another episode because we don't want to bore the audience out there.